evening, everybody, and welcome to the second to the last A.B.A.T.E TV program for the season. So if anybody wants to come on, next week is your last chance. Okay, today is June the 19th. It'll be June the 26th. So put that on your calendar and let us know if there's anything important that you want to come on the show about. To begin the program, the mission of A.B.A.T.E of Illinois is to preserve the universal right to a safe, unrestricted motorcycling environment, unrestricted motorcycling, and to propose and advocate actions that can be taken by elected and appointed officials to protect and conserve the natural resources of the state of Illinois, and ensure through professional management the sustainable use, recreational opportunities, and enjoyment of these resources is available for this and future generations. To fulfill this mission, we will safeguard the rights of all motorcyclists, endorse safety programs and education programs, promote unity through involvement, advocate political awareness and activism, and promote motorcycling enjoyment. It's basically very inexpensive to join. The benefits you get are phenomenal. And you will be standing up for the rights of all motorcyclists in the state of Illinois so that they're not put upon by the authoritarian powers that be that are forever wanting to mind people's private business. And yeah, we've talked about this before. Pat's working the phones tonight, by the way, so if you want to harangue him.
There's a booger on your cheek.
Cool. Can I? Here. I ate it. Anyways, Patrick, lovely, cheerful, sweet, adorable Patrick is working the phones tonight. And again, please call and harangue him. He deserves it. Okay. Today is the 19th of June. Tomorrow is our monthly meeting at the brewery, which is 3848 North Harlem. Harlem just south of Irving Park Road, and the meeting starts at 7:30. Everybody is welcome. Come on down, bring a friend. It's always a good time. And now that it's summer, we're going to be having our meetings sitting outside in the weather. It's absolutely beautiful. Order something off the menu, have beer, share your experiences. If you have any events coming up, you can come there and let the group know. And you can also let Pat know, or any of us online, on Facebook, or on our website, or at the website, that an event's coming up. If something monumental occurred, if there's a birth, a death, an anniversary, something like that, we always like to share these things with one another. And it's very important because A.B.A.T.E is a family. We're not a motorcycle club, we're a family, and we're a lobbying organization, and our specific foundation was to preserve and protect the rights of motorcyclists. And this is A.B.A.T.E of Illinois, so we're protecting the rights of motorcyclists here in the state of Illinois. Pat, is there any legislation going on right now?
Nothing going on right now, but you have a call.
Okay. Caller?
Of your mustache. Yeah. They say to call you. I call you.
About my
Have
mustache?
a nice night, okay? Hello?
Yes, how can we help you?
I'm looking for Pat. The big Pat.
The big Pat is behind the phones.
I called to talk to him.
Okay. Well, you're stuck with me. I don't know what to tell you. Any questions,
What's that?
comments?
We love Pat.
Sorry, I can't help you.
We have a lot of fans, Diane.
I got a lot of fans too. Anyways, if anybody has any events or anything coming up, any comments on anything, please let us know. We just had Spring Fling on Saturday, and As always, it's a very nice event and a lot of fun, and I hope that everybody that was there had a really good time. Great music, and we'll keep you apprised of other A.B.A.T.E events as they come up, and other events throughout the summer which you'll be notified of. We have worked it out so we're notifying a lot of people online of upcoming things, so it's a lot easier, and you can notify us also through Facebook, through the website, and through Google Groups of anything that's happening. And it's really important to let us know. We're more than happy to learn about them. I'm Director of Safety and Education, and I've tried getting into some of the schools lately. It's been, sort of the end of the school year, so there really is nothing. But throughout this school year, unfortunately, they've cut back on so many things with the Chicago Board of Education that I think that they're even lucky to have a driver's education program anymore. I think it's a half a credit for the school year, and there may come a day, and I can't see it lasting too much longer, that they'll discontinue the driver's education program in the schools as part of physical education, partly getting funding, partly getting people to even participate, because there's also a number of issues involved with teaching kids how to drive. But we're doing what we can, and it's so important that we let the students know in the driver's education classes that when they're driving, to look out for motorcyclists, and of course other vehicles as well. But there's so many things that they aren't even aware of. They're just real excited about learning how to drive and get on the road. They're not thinking about things like where do you get the car, and maintaining the car, and insuring the car, because insurance is a very important part of driving. In fact, you should not be driving without insurance at all. And a lot of kids, they don't understand how expensive the insurance is. And so there are a lot of issues that these kids really haven't even thought about that come up in class. Even just as simple as applying the rules of the road that they're learning in school. It's way different being behind the wheel of a car than it is for being in a classroom and having it be just theoretical. How do you respond? What are you supposed to look out for? It's not like when we were kids. Now they've got red light cameras and speed cameras and blue light cameras. It's like everywhere you go, you have completely no privacy. And you can't just toss that parking ticket in the back seat. You get 2 parking tickets, 3 parking tickets, and you can get booted. 2 moving violations, I think you can get booted as well, and it's all computerized. There's no playing around here. If you get a parking ticket in California, they know about it in Illinois. If you get a parking ticket in Illinois, they know about it in New York, because everything is connected on a computerized system. And it's the same as in a criminal situation, that everything is all connected by a computer. And once you're arrested, and this is something a lot of these kids don't even understand, because they think, oh, we're under 18 and nothing's going to happen. They're going to throw our case out of court. When it's really not that simple. Even if the case is thrown out of court, you still have a permanent IR number, individual record number. And that number will always be your number. And if you apply for college, if you apply for the military, if you apply for employment, there is a record of the fact that even if you weren't convicted, the fact that you've been arrested. And if you've been convicted, up until the age of 25, which is something most people don't even know, your juvenile record can be used against you. So there are a lot of issues that come up in the classroom that are directly related to driver's education. Because if, for example, a student is involved in a crash and somebody is injured and there's a personal liability case, an injury case, vehicular anything case, that not only goes on the traffic record, but it'll go on the criminal record if somebody is charged criminally. And these kids weren't fortunate enough to have an attorney for a father like I did, and often I'm answering questions that they didn't even know that they had when suddenly they pop up, and the kids are very grateful to the fact that they've learned this information from me, from the instructor, because a lot of the time these things do not come up in class as part of the normal curriculum. But when they get the police officer coming in to talk to the kids, I forget what department they come from, but they come from various different locations to speak to the kids, and that's when the questions start coming up. But they should be thinking of these questions before anything happens, which is good. And it's better to know what can happen before it happens so you can avoid it. As they say, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So these are topics that come up in the classroom, and I know some of you people have been out riding on your motorcycle, and sometimes you might be almost taken out by an inattentive driver. And we talk in class about the perils of distracted driving. And distracted driving can take so many different forms. It's not just looking left when you should be looking straight ahead. You can be distracted by the radio. You can be distracted by a phone call, which you should not be using your phone at all in the car. And I always tell them, either turn the phone off, put it in the trunk so that you can't be tempted to use it, and if somebody texts you or something like that, if it's that important and you do have the phone in the front seat with you, pull over and answer the phone. There was one story a teacher in one of the classes told at one of the last classes that I did. The teacher told me a story about a friend of hers, and this is the driver's education instructor was telling me about a friend of hers who was another teacher. I don't think she taught driver's education. I think she taught English. She was driving home from Champaign, Illinois, and her phone slipped off the seat and went down on the floor. And while driving, she attempted to retrieve the phone, and she got involved in a collision in which she was killed. Those are the circumstances that were relayed because there was somebody in the back seat that told me the story. Yeah, just be careful. Now, there's a caller. Pray tell, who may it be? Yes, caller?
Hey, Diane, it's Josh Wachowski, State Legislative Coordinator with A.B.A.T.E. How you doing?
Hey, Ski, real good. And yourself?
All right. I'm just strolling along Pennsylvania Avenue out here in D.C. Just got done with day one of an autonomous vehicles conference.
Excellent.
Yeah. Some interesting things have come out in day one. It turns out the testing that these guys want to do, the on-road testing with their test drivers, they admit that it would take almost 100 years of testing for them to prove their systems within 95% of humans.
I'm sure we're all going to be around for that long.
Yeah, it was interesting. Basically, what they were arguing for is that they need to do more software testing, but it was interesting to find out that the real-world physical testing is that insignificant to them, but yet they're still trying to push these things on us.
Well, it's what government does.
It seems to be more industry-related. We heard from several members of industry today who talked about how these things were going to be so great and how they didn't really need government intervention. They felt they could just handle everything on their own.
But how would they enact the legislation without the intervention of government?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what their plan is, other than they're just trying to kind of have it both ways for themselves. The most interesting part came from a guy by the name of Michael DeCourt, I should say. The guy is a former Department of Defense whistleblower. He actually won an award for ethics for blowing the whistle on a Coast Guard project back in '03. And he got up before this conference and blew the whistle about how insignificant the real world testing is and how risky it is to the general public. And he basically said, people are going to die and their deaths will be meaningless.
Is that like the Tesla? I'm not sure.
Well, we're talking the Teslas, Uber has an autonomous system, Lyft has an autonomous system, General Motors, Ford, Toyota, Nissan, Mazda, Volvo, BMW, and Mercedes are all pursuing these kinds of systems.
And they would want to...
And to top that off, Volvo talked today about the benefits of autonomous semi-trucks. So if you can imagine 80,000 pounds of vehicle going down the interstate with a marginal safety record, you can see what we're up against here.
Wow.
Is that platooning you're talking about?
Yeah. So it was very interesting to hear what was said today, to listen to them and to admit to some of the shortcomings of the technology. And there's some bright spots too. They think that with just shuttle-based routes, these things should be okay. But it was just very, very interesting.
It sounds interesting, but at the same time, just a bit bizarre. An autonomous truck?
Oh, yeah. And they're here, by the way. A lot of people think that this is like 10 years off in the future. No, there are cities that are testing them right now.
Wow. But that's kind of frightening, because even though I'm opposed to too much government intervention, this sounds like something that it would be like you've got a separate government running vehicles with no oversight from local jurisdictions.
Well, when I was out here in D.C. a month ago, we met with the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration about this issue. They presently are only issuing guidelines. They're not issuing rules that would have to be adhered to. So the states are picking up the slack from the feds, and they're coming up with their own sets of rules. California actually has been testing these now. They're coming up on almost 5 years. And Illinois is looking at a pilot test program for autonomous vehicles, and they're looking at Chicago/Cook County area to do it in. So it's going to be your guys' problem up there.
Of all places, the biggest city that they would cause the worst problems if there were a major foul-up.
They actually want the big cities for these. What they see autonomous vehicles being are kind of like, you know, when you hail an Uber, it basically would be a robot Uber that would show up. They think that that's the best use of the technology. They've invested almost $1 billion now nationwide to really map out the major cities for these kinds of services.
But are they still going to have a body in the vehicle, Steve?
Yeah, it's nuts. You learn some things out here.
It sounds even beyond sci-fi. It sounds like lunacy.
Well,
to me.
Call it what you will. It is the future, and unfortunately it is here, and I am doing my part as A.B.A.T.E to try to get motorcycles included in the conversation, because here's the thing. NHTSA's first 2 sets of guidelines don't even mention motorcycle once. I just got done with a 9-hour conference listening to experts from all over this industry talk, and the word motorcycle was not said once.
Wasn't there something about the autonomous vehicles not recognizing motorcycles? I don't remember exactly.
Yep, that would be correct. There is a company called Dynamic Research who studied forward collision warning systems. Now, these are the systems that the autonomous vehicles use to, quote-unquote, see. And they found when they tested 8 different commercially available forward collision warning systems that in 40% of the scenarios presented, they failed. And then worse than that, there was one test that was particularly troublesome where they stopped a motorcycle directly in front of these systems and had them approach from the back, so like you're stopped in traffic. 6 out of 8 vehicles failed to pass that test, which means they would continually strike the motorcycle if they were out on public streets. Of the 2 that did pass, only one saw the motorcycle 100% of the time.
That's frightening, because even, for example, if you're driving, it could happen, the forward whatever recognition, it could happen even with a car. More so with a motorcycle, I realize that, but what if the system were to fail or blow up like that Tesla did the other day?
And that's kind of the interesting part. So not only do you have to worry about whether or not the systems will recognize each other, but they're already finding out that, particularly with Google's car, which is Waymo Technologies now, it's a computer controlling the speed and the braking. Well, it brakes differently than a human does. The speed at which it decelerates is, computer controlled, so it's trying to do what it thinks is optimal. Well, it's different than the way a human does, and they're finding out a lot of the Waymo vehicles are getting rear-ended by other human drivers.
Hey, Ski, I have a question.
So that was kind of interesting to learn.
Can their systems be hacked?
But yeah, it's an emerging technology, and we're trying to make sure motorcycles are a part of the conversation. I did manage to talk with several industry leaders who want to continue the conversation about testing and regulation and about technologies that might allow motorcycles to be seen by these creatures.
But Pat wanted to know about the actual possibility of hacking.
Well, cybersecurity is actually what's being presented tomorrow. That's one of the panels that I'll get to observe, and we'll see what they have to say about it. I will point out that Chrysler had an issue with one of their, I believe it was a Jeep or something along those lines, had a smart feature to it, and a hacker demonstrated how he could take remote control of the vehicle through that system.
Well, there's a number of videos on YouTube that show how cars' braking system, electrical systems could be hacked remotely, and that guy, Barnaby Jack, before he got killed in a car crash, there's still a question mark as to whether or not he was, but he was talking about hacking medical devices and warning people about that. So if you have a stent or something like that, I guess maybe, and I don't mean to cut you short, Ski, when I say this, but a very important thing that you need to stress, and thank you for really being there, and I know I'm sure that a lot of this stuff does come out of your own pocket, as it has for us, but somebody's got to stand up for the little guy and even present to them things that they may not be thinking about, just like you'd mentioned. About motorcycles?
So far, we have been able to do that. When we start talking motorcycles with a lot of these people, they want to continue the conversation. I'll call out General Motors had an accident with a motorcycle in December of last year. They have worked very well with us in terms of the conversation. I've had several productive conversations with a gentleman by the name of Harry Lightsey, and he is who is heading up General Motors' autonomous vehicle program.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah,
you picked the right guy, right, Patrick?
And as of today, Toyota is in the mix as well. I had a really good conversation with their lead engineer, and we're looking at a technology called DSRC, which is a type of radio that you can attach to your bike that would allow it to talk to smart cars or to autonomous vehicles, and so that way they would be able to see you.
I think anything that has the word smart to it has the potential of being totally stupid and dumb.
Oh, that is true.
I hear smart, I'm like, yeah, my BS sensor rises. Question, we only have a couple of minutes left, Ski. Do you want to just give us an encapsulation of what's going to happen tomorrow?
Tomorrow we're going to be talking about cybersecurity issues, but they're also going to be talking about vehicle-to-vehicle communication, which is the big thing for us. If motorcycles are going to continue to be part of the transportation grid with these kind of vehicles, we need to establish a protocol for vehicle-to-vehicle communication. So that is going to be a very important panel. But something else that's going to be presented is the legal liabilities. Representative Zalewski tried running a bill this year that if you would have gotten in a collision with an autonomous vehicle, it would have been a product liability lawsuit, and it would have been 7 to 9 years before that lawsuit would get settled, because that's how long it takes those things to go.
Not personal injury.
Not personal injury. And that is the method that the industry is pushing. But the trial lawyers and several other legal groups are pushing for a binding arbitration or a court issue. But where the real fun comes in on this is if you accuse the autonomous vehicle of improper driving, how do you prove it? Because the companies are claiming the data from that autonomous vehicle that shows what it was doing prior to the crash is proprietary corporate secret data, and they will not release it.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of very serious legal issues with this, and part of those legal issues are holding up. There's a federal piece of legislation called the A.B.A.T.E Act. And that legislation is now being held up because the attorneys have gotten smart to some of the provisions in it, and they're going after it. And one of those attorneys involved in that is actually giving a presentation tomorrow.
Please share it with us, and we'll get it out to the members as well, because
I will do what I can. I encourage everybody to go to facebook.com/A.B.A.T.E, the number 4IL, and subscribe to our email alert systems. That is how I try to get most of the information out.
Great. Thank you. I got to close the show right now, Ski. Thank you for being in D.C. and working hard, and it's all worth it in the end. We really appreciate the hard work that you do and look forward to seeing you down in Springfield.
I look forward to seeing you too. Yes, have a good one.
Travel safely and see you all down the road and at the meeting tomorrow. Good night, everybody.